When it comes to feast days and devotions, some of the apostles get more attention than others. Peter admittedly has to share his feast day with St. Paul, the apostle to the Gentiles, but it's a solemnity, no less, not a feast. And St. Peter gets an extra mention due to the feast of the chair of St. Peter. Paul also has the extra feast celebrating his conversion. St. John, St. Thomas, and St. Andrew get their own feast days. But some apostles have to bunk up, as it were, with other apostles to have a joint feast day. Even then, there are apostles about whom we know a bit more than some of the others, which helps give them a greater profile and helps us to relate to them better. Of course, feast days should not be understood as prizes of popularity contests. I only mention the issue of the relative prominence of the different apostles as reflected in their feast days and in their relative prominence among the faithful, in order to point out that there can be something positive in the fact that sometimes there are saints whom we rightly celebrate but about whom we know little and who could thus be easily sidelined. It is a reminder that there is a divine economy that does not reduce to human evaluation. About Saint Simon and Jude, we know little, really, apart from their names in the Gospels. Simon is called in Mark and Matthew the Canaanite or the Canaan, suggesting that he was born in Cana. The Greek word is also perhaps a transcription of the Aramaic, meaning zealous, which might explain Luke's description of Simon as the zealot or the zealous one, even though this could suggest, possibly misleadingly, that Simon was one of the zealot party, if that group existed at the time. After Pentecost, Simon, like several other apostles, is not heard of again in the New Testament. That said, there is an abundance of legends about his subsequent life and indeed final martyrdom. One Eastern source gives Edessa in Mesopotamia as the place where he died. But a Western tradition affirms that he first preached in Egypt. He was then joined by his fellow apostle Jude, who was also then martyred in Persia. But this later tradition comes from about the 6th century. It also helps explain why we celebrate Simon and Jude together on this feast day. Jude is called Judas of James and Judas not Iscariot, and is often identified with Thaddeus, who is included in the list of the apostles in Matthew chapter 10 and in Mark chapter 3, where there is no mention of the name Jude itself. It was Jude who asked the Lord at the Last Supper why he shows himself only to his disciples and not to the world, and he is also often identified as the author of the letter in the New Testament bearing his name. As with everything else in life, in scholarship, that is somewhat controversial. Yet, despite the confusing information and uncertainties, Jude, more than Simon, and perhaps more than any of the other apostles, overcomes any risk of being overlooked, not despite, but because of what might otherwise have undermined his popularity. For St. Jude is the much prayed to patron of desperate situations and hopeless cases. Why is he the patron of desperate situations and of hopeless cases? Well, some think it's because his name was so like that of Judas Iscariot, the traitor who betrayed Jesus, that St. Jude was, in a sense, the last option, the last resort among the apostle saints when all the others had been, as it were, tried out. St. Jude, by virtue of his name of inauspicious association, became the apostle whose intercession is perhaps the most commonly sought of all the apostles, surpassing that of even Saints Peter and Paul in terms of popular devotion. Devotion to St. Jude, patron saint of desperate situations and hopeless cases, is a reminder that life for many can be hard, and that even if certain matters seem hopeless, nothing is so hopeless that nothing good can come from it. In that sense, there is no such thing as a fully hopeless case. Saint Simon and Saint Jude, apostles, pray for us.